These videos will make you question everything. So remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. Let's check it out.
Number 5. In 1995, 14-year-old Tanya Catch had disappeared. It had been this year that she moved to McKeesport to live with her father and his fiancée. At the new school that Tanya was set to attend was where she would endure bullying. Additionally, she would have to deal with a complex relationship that she had with her mother. The middle schooler would soon begin to feel isolated. A 38-year-old man named Thomas Hose, who was the school's security guard at Cornell Middle School, would turn out to be connected to the girl's disappearance. The events at this time would take a dark turn, which would lead to Tanya's life being changed forever. She'd been lured to Hose's home in McKeesport, where she would be held captive for the next 10 years of her life.
Jeez.
During these 10 years, Tanya would be locked in a bedroom, and if she resisted or attempted to flee, she would be harshly threatened. At the age of 24, Tanya had made her victorious escape in 2006. She'd been permitted to work a part-time job at a convenience store. Tanya expressed that reclaiming her identity had been rather difficult for her, but after a couple of years, she was able to settle down and find herself a better place. She furthermore wants others to know that there is hope after experiencing such severe trauma. The events that led up to Tanya being kidnapped started off with Hose befriending her at the school. It was reported that he would take her out of class to talk with her, and on one occasion had caught her skipping class. Soon, he tried to convince her to run away or move in with him. Tanya had done this that February, and after 4 years, she was not permitted to leave the house. At the time, Hose had been living with his parents and his son, and managed to keep Tanya hidden from them during her years of captivity. She was confined in the house in the second-story room. In 2000, the security guard made a new identity for Tanya under the name of Nikki Allen, and would introduce her to his parents as his girlfriend. Thereafter, she would be permitted to leave the house, granted that she stick to her very strict curfew. And 6 years after that, she managed to make her lucky escape. In later interviews, Tanya would recall that Hose wore a uniform and a badge and was supposed to be someone you could trust. She expressed that he'd even befriended her. During her time in captivity, she was only allowed to shower once a week in the cold cellar, and even been forced to spend Christmas locked in a closet. After Hose had changed the girl's name, he would also force her to dye her hair. Later in life, she would release a book that speaks of her own ordeal that was titled Memoir of a Milk Carton Kid. She'd also expressed that she'd felt as though she'd been brainwashed and felt humiliated. She detailed that during this time she would eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, bananas, and a can of Faygo soda. Once she'd taken a part-time job, and after realizing that the relationship between her and Hose wasn't right, Tanya confided in a coworker who would later call the police. Hose went on to spend 15 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to all charges. He was later released at the age of 65 and was registered with the Pennsylvania State Police under the state's Megan's Law.
You know, the crazy part is when they showed the picture of the house and how all of those houses were surrounding it. I just sit there and I think to myself, like, man, like I live in a neighborhood, several houses in this neighborhood, and somebody could be doing something like, and you just don't know. You don't know. That's the scary part about it.
Number 4. For quite some time, a house in the pocket of Sunshine Coast had harbored the answer to a 2-decade-long mystery. At the age of only 10 months old, Savannah Todd had been in the center of a custody battle when her mother had disappeared with her from the United States in 1994. Benjamin Harris Todd III, a South Carolina stockbroker and Savannah's father, never gave up hope in finding his daughter. It was in 2013 when a tip had come through, resulting in the Australian and US police swooping into a Mountain Creek home on the border of Queensland's Sunshine Coast. Here, a woman was registered under the name of Alexandra Geldenhuis. It was soon discovered that her daughter Samantha had been none other than the long-lost daughter Savannah, who was now 20 years old and a nursing student. Alexandra's real name had been Dorothy Lee Barnett. She and Todd had married in 1991, but had split up right before Savannah was born. Todd's lawyer, Graham Sturgis, had stated that Barnett had struggled to remain in her seat during court sittings. Additionally, a guard had to stand behind her at all times during these proceedings. Todd was soon awarded custody of the young Savannah, and Barnett was permitted to visit her every second weekend. But unfortunately, Barnett refused to return her right after the first visit. Contempt of court proceedings followed, but the mother had been stripped of her rights to visit Savannah, and only weeks later, in April of '94, the two had disappeared, even though it had been a supervised visit. Todd's lawyer had accompanied him to the house in an effort to find the missing girl. Sturgis had stated that it had been the most terrifying part of the whole ordeal, because he was uncertain as to what he may find there. He initially thought that she may have done something to the child or to herself. It was reported that when they arrived at the house, everything had been a mess. Food had been left on a map of Central America. Soon, Todd had become visible in the media and appeared on popular talk shows, which had included Montel Williams and Sally Jesse Raphael, who agreed to tell his story through articles in magazines and newspapers. A civil court case was also launched against Barnett, which would award Todd with $50 million for the suffering that he had endured. But it was not the money that Todd had his eye on. He and the lawyer were aiming for a subpoena and to take depositions from those they believed had knowledge as to Savannah's whereabouts, or those they thought may have aided in Barnett's disappearance with their child. Barnett would go on to be accused of fleeing with the girl to Europe and marrying a man from South Africa. They would later move to New Zealand before ultimately settling in Australia in 2007. She was placed into Queensland custody before being indicted in the United States on parental kidnapping, as well as making false accusations in terms of passport applications. The states had planned to extradite Barnett, and if she was convicted, she would face 20 years in prison. Savannah, who was 20 when she was found, was attending James Cook University and allegedly stands by her mother. She had insisted that she was not a victim and forgave her mother for the kidnapping, despite having spent her whole life on the run. Savannah had expressed that she always had a mother who protected and loved her. She also believed that Barnett had done what she had for a valid reason. When an investigation was carried out on the Isle of Palms, South Carolina home, investigators found crawl spaces in the closets as well as maps with cities and escape routes that had been highlighted. It was believed that Barnett had fled the States with the use of a fake passport and a secret organization known as the Children of the Underground. This organization is said to help women who are stuck in abusive relationships. Of course, this hadn't been the case with Todd and Barnett, and the kidnapping was based on the grounds that Barnett had not won custody. The mother had also claimed directly that Todd had been abusive, but after further research by doctors, no signs or evidence had pointed to any sort of abuse. Barnett was later sentenced to 20.
She also brainwashed the daughter. So now that she's been located, found, or whatever, you don't know what type or how the dad. That's why he probably going after everybody. You know what I mean? It's going to take all this undoing for me to have a decent relationship with my child now because she's been brainwashed and lied to. So I've probably been painted to look like this horrible person. No, yeah, I'm going after everybody.
21 months in prison and 2 years of supervised release. She'd been on supervised release up until 2017. In 2014, Savannah was reunited with some of her relatives, and in 2015, she was back with her father. Savannah hopes that she may maintain a relationship with both of her parents. Number 3. For ages, the question as to whether or not there's water on the moon had been wondered by many. In recent years, it seems that scientists have uncovered evidence of water ice on our moon's surface. The water ice is believed to be in the polar regions of the moon and is thought to be ancient, based on the proceedings of the National Academy of Science. Researchers from the University of Hawaii and Brown University, as well as Richard Elphick from NASA's Ames Research Center, made use of data collected from NASA's Moon Mineralogy Mapper instrument in order to make this mysterious discovery. This instrument had been on the first lunar probe of India that had been launched in 2008. It had been specifically designed to find signatures that prove the presence of water ice on the moon's surface. Doing this would include gathering certain data that would not only detect the reflective properties of ice, but also the way in which the molecules absorb infrared light, which is said to tell the difference between water and ice. There had been previous studies of the poles of the moon that had suggested there was a possibility of the presence of ice, but such signs could have been due to other phenomena, The water ice is found in the most cold and dark areas of the lunar poles. They can be found in craters where the sun may never reach due to the moon's tilt. Temperatures in these generally do not exceed negative 250 degrees Fahrenheit. At the southern lunar pole, water ice may be found in these craters, and at the northern pole, the ice is more widely spread and sparse. This strange distribution hints at the idea that there may be a low water rate supply, or that the ice is rather ancient and has not accumulated much thereafter. A researcher at the Hawaii Institute of Geophysics and Planetology, Shuai Li, had stated that they had discovered that the distribution of the ice is patchy, which is said to be different from other planets like Mercury or Ceres, where the ice is pure and abundant. It was further stated that the spectral features of the ice may be suggestive that it was formed by slow condensation from vapor that was due to an impact or water migration from space. With some further observations and studies, more may be revealed about the evolution process of the moon. It's believed that the water ice may serve as a possible water source for future lunar exploration. It's also thought that this water ice may be easier to access than the potential water that may rest beneath the surface. Lee further explained that given that the moon is Earth's closest planetary neighbor, understanding how the water ice had ended up on the moon may also give us an insight as to the origins of the water on our planet and other planets throughout the solar system. A lunar mission that may come sometime in the future is necessary to examine the permanently shaded regions in order to map out the water ices and to further understand the processes that had led to it. It's research such as this that may pave the road for any future lunar expeditions, specifically that of the water ice being a potential water source. Future missions may already
be good for us. If we ever decide we need to inhabit the moon, we have a water source. Mars, we're still trying to figure that out, right? So they say it's a possibility on Mars as well, though.
Be planned out by the United States, China, and Russia. These places are said to have their eyes set on the south pole of the moon. They hope to research some of the most intriguing lunar mysteries there, and perhaps make use of them. The Indian probe is responsible for this rise in interest in the moon, after its suitcase-sized rover had sent back some hints as to the environment they'd found themselves in. It had been when the rover found itself several meters away from the ship that it burrowed itself into the soil, only to find that there was a drop in temperature below. The surface area was found to be a temperature of 120 degrees Fahrenheit, but below that the temperature dropped to 14 degrees Fahrenheit. There was additionally a presence of sulfur, magnesium, chromium, calcium, iron, aluminum, titanium, and oxygen within the moon's soil. It was also discovered that the moon's shallow axis of rotation, as compared to that of the Earth, meant that some of the craters present had not seen any daylight. Along with this, there had been the recorded drop in temperatures, which is believed to have resulted in the abundance of ice, made mostly from water, which was either mixed into the soil or had been exposed on the moon's surface. The best evidence that researchers have of water on the moon had come from a NASA experiment from October of 2009, when a rocket had slammed into a crater that was situated in the southern pole region. The plume material had shown evidence of water, which makes up one of the most direct hints of water ice present on the moon.
If you had the choice of which one to inhabit, which one would you choose? Mars? Just based off what we know so far, Mars or the moon? Which one?
Number 2. In certain areas of the ocean, scuba divers have reported seeing some underwater crop circles.
It's a fish.
Symmetrical patterns carved into the sandy floor were a phenomenon that was first noted in Japan in 1995,
Fish.
close to the southern Amami Oshima Island, and no one was able to explain it. In recent years, though, it appears that this mystery has been solved, and the outcome was most unexpected.
A male fish trying to impress a female fish. Yep.
Recreational divers had observed the first intricate circle and called it a mystery circle. These supposed crop circles are not the works of underwater aliens, but rather an interesting creature, the pufferfish. As declared by a team of researchers, geometrical structures play a part in the pufferfish mating ritual. Based on observations, it was determined that the sea creature responsible was a small male pufferfish. It was reported that the male pufferfish will reconstruct these geometric circles on the seabed, which play a key role in the female mate choices. The fish will flap its fins laboriously along the floor of the ocean, which disrupts the sediment, resulting in an interesting creation. These fish measure only 12 centimeters in length, but are able to create formations up to 2 meters in diameter. It takes the pufferfish 7 to 9 days of tireless effort to complete their geometrical circle. While there are many fish species that have some interesting mating methods, the pufferfish has one of the more unique techniques.
She better be worth it for all that hard work he put in. You know what I mean? It sucks for him to do that, and then she show up and she not interested. She might have to go missing.
Constructs are made of radially aligned valleys and ridges outside of the nesting site. These ridges are then decorated using shells or fragments of them. He'll then gather up some finer sediment that'll give the creation some color and distinction. The female pufferfish will then make her decision on a mate based on their construction skills. Researchers, however, are still uncertain as to what exactly the females are looking for in these constructs. If the female pufferfish is satisfied with the intricate design, she'll lay her eggs within its center, where the male can then fertilize them. It's theorized that the females may only be after the fine sand, and not these patterns and geometric designs. One researcher stated that it's possible that the valleys are being used to channel these fine particles into the center, and don't serve an aesthetic purpose. Strangely, these nests are never reused, and a new circle will always be constructed. This is believed to be because these valleys don't contain enough of the fine sediments for more reproductive cycles. At the time of the first discovery of these crop circles, there was uncertainty as to whether it had been a natural phenomenon or if it was the work of an organism. In 2011, it was observed for the first time that a small male pufferfish had created one of these geometric circles on the seabed. Some researchers have delved into the reasoning behind the constructions, their functions, and why the patterns are not reused. 10 male pufferfish were observed in an area that was set up on the bottom of Sesui and Katesu. Only 2 males appeared in the observation area, and no other males entered it. The fish had been tagged at the time of the observation, but it's believed that S1, S3, and K1 and K3 had been the same individuals due to the lottery scars on their body. These 4 males had been present in both previous as well as new geometric circles. Researchers were able to capture the stages of the circles from early, middle, final, and spawning levels. It was found that the fish would make use of their pectoral fins and caudal fins while swimming in a line. They would also move in angles in a radial direction from the outer edges of the circle toward the inside. They would temporarily stop fin flapping when they neared the center. Through these intricate observations by dedicated researchers, it was found exactly what had caused these otherworldly geometric circles on the seabeds. It had simply been the works of a unique pufferfish in order to attract a mate, thus solving the underwater crop circle mystery. Number 1. In the most grasping of fantasy movies, fictional novels, and historical records, there's been a myth circulating for decades: the Kraken. For many years, sailors were terrified of the Kraken, a horrifying sea creature that had the capability of sinking full ships.
Did he say were terrified? No. They still are. We still are terrified of it.
There have been various tellings of such stories, and up until more recent years, we believed this creature to be a mere myth or legend that's been carried out through the tales of time. But in recent years, it was found that the mythological beast was no myth at all. These legends were actually based on a very real maritime animal, the giant squid. This creature was found to be the subject of various studies. Although the squid is incredibly large, it's strangely elusive, and a lot of its biology is widely unknown. They are known to be one of the largest invertebrates and are considered among the largest animals on Earth. Males can reach a length of up to 13 meters, with females reaching around 10 meters. These giant squids were found to be longer than the Southern Ocean's colossal squids. Some unconfirmed sightings have claimed that these beasts can reach a length of 20 meters. They're believed to live an estimated 4 to 6 years. The immense size of these animals is part of a phenomenon called abyssal gigantism. Gigantism refers to the tendency where some deep-sea animals grow to be significantly larger than their shallow water counterparts. There are other examples of such creatures who are subject to gigantism, and these include the Japanese spider crab, big red jellyfish, as well as the oarfish. Initially, when one thinks of a giant squid, they would envision the ship capsizing Kraken. Gigantism is a strange phenomenon that can be attributed to many myths and legends. This fantasy beast has actually become a part of South Africa's marine heritage. The excitement surrounding this creature rose when a carcass washed up on the west coast. These mysterious beings are so elusive that it wasn't until 2004 that one was photographed in its natural environment. Scientists are not quite in agreement as to how abyssal gigantism has come about, and since the deep sea is far too inaccessible, it leaves further research undoable. Another problem in studying animals with gigantism is that deep-sea animals do not often survive being brought to the surface. These creatures that are grabbed by predators or snagged by trawlers end up being poor specimens for biologists. Even though these giant squids don't have swim bladders as fish do, they're still susceptible to injury when rapidly surfacing, change in water temperature, or the change in water chemistry. This is likely
that's probably why we haven't seen a lot of them, man. Like that water temperature. Some of them probably like that water temperature that's deep, well within the ocean. So that's why we haven't seen a lot of things, man. Like it's not gonna be until we start exposing or seeing or using the technology that's gonna be able to show us what's really at those depths, man. I firmly believe that. And it's gonna be some, you talk about gigantism. Wait till we see what's down there.
Why scuba divers have only come across giant squids that are deceased. Just because they're rarely seen alive does not mean that they don't thrive in the deeper areas of the ocean. Since there have been so many stories told of the Kraken, it's safe to assume that there had been prior knowledge of their existence. Aristotle of Greece had detailed truths as a large squid that was 5 ells in length. An ell refers to the measurement of your elbow to the tip of your finger. Pliny the Elder had also described a squid that measured over 9 meters in length and weighed over 300 kilograms. The Nordic stories of the Kraken had also been clearly based on a giant squid. The stories of the large creatures reached European scholars, writers, and poets, and the legends have since persisted. Footage of these elusive gigantic creatures was captured for the first time by Eddie Witter and was set to make an appearance in a Discovery Channel documentary. Based on Bergman's rule, marine animals may grow larger in colder climates. This is supported by observations made in colder climates and the larger marine life that's found there, such as Greenland sharks and giant sea spiders. It's believed that low temperatures led to the cells of the animal growing larger. Colder climates also seem to slow the metabolic rate, which ultimately leads to a longer lifespan. It so appeared that the mystery of the previously believed myth of the Kraken had been solved. The legendary giants were not a myth, but rather a very real biological adaptation of deep-sea animals. The legends that circulated most likely came from made-up tellings when such creatures washed ashore and scared the residents nearby. From a kraken to a hydra, sea serpent, or leviathan, to an act of abyssal gigantism played on a deep-sea squid. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah, and like they said, the cold probably allows them to get bigger and live longer. So imagine, man, I don't know, man. I'ma always believe that they're down there, deep down there, and they like those temperatures, and they probably have a food source, unlimited supply down there. So they don't need to come up and surface. But if something changes and it forces them up, that's when we'll know. That's when we'll know. But listen, man, y'all get at me in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of this video of the 10 strangest, mysterious cases that are very, very creepy. It's your boy L. Stick around and stay tuned, man. Until next one, I'm gone.